Today we're talking about how to start an LLC in Washington, and what you can see behind me is a checklist that we're going to be walking through that's being casted to the TV here from my computer, and we're going to be going through a lot of different steps in the process, but more importantly than all of that, we're going to be talking about how to avoid the LLC dumpster fire. That is something where you get your LLC set up and maybe you rush through the process and there's cracks in your LLC that can cost you tens of thousands of dollars down the line, maybe 2-3 years out, because your LLC isn't doing what it's supposed to do for you, which is limiting your liability. So if you're not familiar with terms such as piercing the corporate veil, registered agents, commingling funds, pass-through taxation, how the LLC renewal process works, or business licenses and permits, we're going to be explaining all of that in this video series. And to better explain all of that, what I'd recommend is going first with what an LLC actually does for your business. So what we're going to do is go through a hypothetical scenario of owning a coffee shop without an LLC. Now, what you can see back here is this is a business owner here in the center, and on the left-hand side, you have their personal home, personal car, personal bank account. But on the right-hand side, we have the cafe that they own, along with the point of sale, the business bank account, the espresso machine, and the lights. When everything is connected directly back to that business owner, that creates a lot of liability for the individual. Conversely, if you look at this, it's owning an LLC that owns the coffee shop. Now you can see that that looks very different. On the left-hand side, we have personal assets attached to the business owner. And on the right-hand side, we have business assets that are attached to the business LLC. Acme Coffee LLC is what we're calling it. Most importantly is we have this red division in the middle. What that is called is the corporate veil. That is the thing that creates the division between your business assets and your personal assets. Why this is important is, let's say that you were to be sued. If somebody were to sue you and you have a proper LLC, they can only come after your business assets and not your personal car and home. But let's say in that example that when the attorney sues you, what they're going to try to do is something called piercing the corporate veil. If we scroll up, we can recall that that's the first thing on our checklist up here. And I'm also going to check off commingling funds because we're going to talk about that in a second as well. So when that attorney's suing you, if they find a crack in your LLC, something that you did incorrectly, and the judge agrees with them, they allow them to pierce the corporate veil, which basically removes this division in the middle so they can come after your business and personal assets. An example of this is commingling funds. Let's say this business owner ran transactions through their personal bank account from the beginning, and they were running business and personal transactions through that account. That's commingling funds, and it creates a crack, and it allows the attorney to make a case for piercing the corporate veil to the judge. So you can start to see why it's so important to just not understand what an LLC is, but all of the components that swirl around it so that you make sure that you keep it intact and do what it's supposed to do for you. Now, next, I want to talk about an explanation of pass-through taxation. This will just be helpful at tax times for you to understand this. Now, what we have here is the Acme Coffee LLC. So we have a smart business owner who set up the LLC. And you can see that the business grossed $140,000 and they had expenses of $90,000. What that does is create a net income of $50,000. The IRS is not taxing the LLC. What happens is that $50,000 passes through to the business owner. It's also called flow-through taxation. You may hear it called that. So then the IRS is going to be taxing the business owner. I just wanted to make you aware of that so you have a good understanding what happens at tax time. Now, sometimes you'll hear people say stuff like, oh, set up an LLC, you'll save on taxes. These business expenses, you could have those as a sole proprietor. What you wouldn't have as a sole proprietor is that extra limited liability protection. But when you have an LLC set up, what you can do in the future is elect to tax it as an S Corp. When you do that, that's when you can save on taxes. Because this video series that we're going to be going through is not just about what the LLC is, but I want to plant seeds of things you want to consider 2-3 years out to make sure that you're optimizing your business. So again, we're going to be talking about that in the third video in this series about how you can save on taxes with an S Corp. Cool thing is the LLC is flexible, so you're allowed to change into that S Corp designation down the line, and you don't have to open up a new entity necessarily. All right, let's get into the checklist here for getting set up with your LLC in Washington. Number one is just getting this checklist for yourself, and what I want you to do is explore the bonuses in here. So you'll see this drop down here. There's an AI chatbot here, which is pretty cool. And what this allows you to do is start an LLC in Washington. So if I put that question in there, this chatbot is going to give you a detailed list in here. If you're wondering how do I register an EIN, you can click this button and it gives you the detailed list of how to register your EIN. So this is a free tool available for you within this Notion doc. And again, you can just get it in the description below. There's a free charitable opportunity when you get your LLC set up, which we're going to talk about in the next video. This yearly accounting calendar, super helpful for understanding important dates for managing your LLC, and you can save that image to your phone. Free CPA advice and future tax savings we're going to be talking about as well. Also, if you have any questions, there's a glossary of terms here with a lot of information. This is helpful just recovering some of the terms that you may be hearing through this video that circle around an LLC. Now, what we want to do is decide which route you go to get your LLC set up. You can go with the state site, the online LLC services, or a business attorney. For the sake of example, what we're going to be going through is the state site on this video, but just know that there's pros and cons to all of these, but we're going to be deep diving in the next video on what those are exactly. Now let's look at deciding on a business name for your LLC. This is really important in some ways and not others. What's important is that you have a unique LLC name that no other company has within the state of Washington. But what isn't as important is having the perfect LLC name. The reason I say that is people put a lot of pressure on themselves to do that. But you can have what's called a fictitious name or a DBA, a doing business as, that exists underneath that LLC. So maybe your LLC is Acme Coffee LLC, which isn't a great name, but then your brand name is Espresso Yourself Cafe. That can exist as a DBA underneath the LLC. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. Once you have a name in mind, and I would highly suggest using tools such as like ChatGPT, which you can use to help brainstorm throughout the process if you're not sure what to call your business, is you can click on this state directory list right here. And what we're going to do is scroll down to Washington, and this is a free resource for you. And there's this corporation search here, so contains. Now in Washington, you have the Huskies football team. And so if we do a search here, what we're going to find is you're going to find a lot of businesses with the word Huskies in it, all right? So it's unlikely that you're going to find a unique name with that. But if I were to just kind of like jam out on the keyboard here and do this, then what you can see here after a search is that there are 0 records found, no value found. That's what you want for your LLC name. Now, of course, I hope you have a better LLC name than just going like that on the keyboard. But I just wanted you to be aware of this is the process for figuring that out. Now what you can do here is once you have that name, you can get started getting your LLC set up. Now there's 2 different ways you can go here. You can start by just registering your LLC name, and you can do that through the state website, which we were just on. But registering your LLC name is not the same as filing your articles of organization, which are the next 2 steps in this process of writing them and filing them. The best way I can explain this is like, let's say you're setting up a website and you don't have the time or resources yet to set up the website. What you might do is you might buy the domain name so you can secure that name. That's what you're doing when you're registering your LLC name, is you're just securing that name, but you're not actually setting it up. What we want to do is file the articles of organization. So we're going to click on the state directory here. And this bullet point list will tell you what goes into it, but we're going to actually look on the Washington state here. So this is what the actual PDF looks like for the state of Washington. And what I want to do is scroll down and just cover a couple of items when it comes to your articles of organization. And here it calls it a certificate of formation. You have your business name here. You have your reserved name. If you have that reservation number, that's what we talked about when you register the name. Period of duration, check one of the following. The company shall have a perpetual duration, which is the default. Or you can say, this is a company set up for 5 years, and then you have an effective date. But what I wanted to do was talk about this right here, which is your commercial registered agent. This is kind of disappointed because a lot of times these sites, they just like breeze through this and they don't explain what a registered agent truly is. Well, here's what you need to know. The registered agent is a third party that exists, and they handle important documentation and communication for your business. The 2 rules around it is they have to have an address in your state, a physical address, and it can't be a PO box. Now, what they're doing is, if we go back to the coffee shop example, let's say that you were to be sued. What they'll do is they'll handle the important communication from that attorney and then make sure you're getting that and then showing up at court. So if you get a service of process notice, which is a fancy way of saying you need to show up to court, they're going to help you with that. They're going to make sure you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's through this process. So they're a trusted ally that makes sure that you don't have cracks in your LLC. In the next video, we're going to be talking about professional services out there that actually are free for the first year of owning your LLC. And once you get that set up, you can put their information in there. Now you can see the principal office. So it's like your address, return address for this filing, executor information, which is just basically you signing off on this document. Now, once you're all set with this, you can mail this into the state of Washington, the Secretary of State. The fee here is $180 as of making this video. There is no way around that fee. If you go through the state website, if you go through an online legal tool or a business attorney, you are paying that $180. Now, what we're going to be talking about in the next video too is the fees related to maintaining an LLC. And that's another aspect you have to consider year 2, year 3, and out. And that's why in the next video, we're going to talk about what it costs to own an LLC in Washington for 5 years. So let's say you get that filled out, you mail it in with your $180 check to the Secretary of State, and you've assigned a registered agent. Now what you want to consider is creating an LLC operating agreement. It's not required in the state of Washington to have one upon formation, but it's a really good idea. What I like to say is this is one of those situations where an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Let's say that your coffee shop blows up. You have 20 locations and you also have a partner from the beginning, and you never had an operating agreement in place. And that operating agreement would have explained who the partners are, what are their roles and responsibilities, but it would also handle things such as what do you do in case of an exit? Well, that's not really spelled out in the beginning. So now you may have a lengthy legal battle where it costs tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees just to figure out what his shares are worth of that business. So that's why an operating agreement is super helpful, is it just helps to prevent these lengthy issues down the road because everything is spelled out day one. Now, after you get your LLC set up, you'll want to set up an EIN. There's an IRS link here, and you can actually do this for free on the IRS website. And what that is an employer identification number. It's like a social security number for your business so the IRS can identify you. If you're going to have employees on payroll, you need an EIN. But it's also helpful when you're doing things like applying for a business bank account, or maybe you're trying to rent out an office space or something like that. You want to put your EIN on the information, not your social security number. It's going to help legitimize your business in the eyes of the people that you're doing business with. So then once you get your EIN set up, and that'll take a little bit of time, right? And again, those online legal tools, those can do this for you as well. But it is an additional fee. You can obtain business licenses and permits for your LLC. What we have here is a nice resource from the SBA. You can read through this and it's included in the Notion doc. But what I want to do right now is just kind of explain this through the hypothetical example of owning a brewery. Now, with the brewery, you're brewing beer, you're distributing beer, and you're also selling beer on premise. All three of those things may require separate licenses and permits, and then depending, it may be on the federal level, it could be on the state level, and the local level. So even your own town or city may require these licenses and permits. What I would suggest is calling the town clerk of the town you live in and just asking them, say, hey, here's my business category. Can you at least point me in the right direction or let me know what I need? You can also do some Googling. You can go through the state website, the IRS website, all of these things. But the LLC services that are available to you online, those online legal tools, they can do this research for you based on your business category as well. But again, it's an additional fee. But I just wanted to make you aware that when you get your LLC set up, many times you still need these business licenses and permits, but they're going to apply to things such as like if you're a chiropractor or a dentist, or you're starting a construction company or brewing beer, these types of things that naturally carry permits with them. In the next video in the series, what we're going to be going is covering the top 3 ways that you can get an LLC set up. And we're going to be going through the fees associated with setting up your LLC, and you can figure out down to the dollar with this embedded cost calculator that's below what your LLC is going to cost in Washington State 5 years from now. And that's pretty cool. It's going to do it for the top 5 LLC services. We're going to cover the details of where these star ratings came from when you're comparing these different services and paths of setting up your LLC. We're also going to be talking about why these state websites can become a pain, and it has to do with domestic and foreign LLCs, which again, we'll explain in the next video. And then questions worth asking, specifically, should you hire a business attorney? We're going to be deep diving on different questions that are worth asking yourself in that capacity. And again, I'll mention that there is a free link in the description below to get this Notion doc. And the next video on the screen here, we're going to walk through all these items of figuring out which path is the right path for you when you're getting your LLC set up. We'll catch you in the next video.